Hello, everybody. Tina Ketchie Stearns here with the third video in a free 3-part series that we're doing based on the survey results of the people that signed up for the Telesummit. It's about how you live, taking the fear out of conversations about advanced care planning, serious illness, and end-of-life care. There was a survey that you all completed, and there were certain things that you wanted to learn a little bit more about. And one of them that I was really pleasantly surprised that you wanted to learn more about was the whole spiritual aspect of the end-of-life experience and different approaches to that. And in the Telesummit, we had probably 3 or 4 experts from different practices speaking to that whole thing. And you probably heard me mention a Native American woman that is very important to me, many times, several times, at least 4 or 5 times anyway. And I am thrilled to introduce you to her today. My guest is Robin Lynn, White Star Woman with the Flower Eagle Medicine Lodge. So welcome, Robin.
Thank you, Tina. Very honored, very honored. I loved listening to some of the segments that you did earlier. It's such a service, so thank you very much.
Oh, well, I'm just so excited that I talked about you through so many of the interviews, and now people actually finally get to meet you. So I'm going to read a little bit of background about Robin real quickly, and then we're going to just have her explain to us how she got into this whole experience and her teachings and her mentors, etc. So Robin Lynn is a shamanic healer and spiritual teacher, synthesizing Native American practices, self-empowerment ritual, and feminine spirituality. She currently teaches and has a healing practice through the Flower Eagle Medicine Lodge in her home in Winston-Salem, North Carolina. Mm-hmm. So again, welcome, welcome. And I'm just going to let you explain to all these lovely people the wonderful things that you do. And I've learned so much from you. So I'm just going to first of all say thank you for all the wonderful lessons you've taught me. So go ahead.
Okay. So I started my spiritual training when I was 13. With the Inner Peace Movement, which was a spiritual training program. My parents and I and other members of my family took all that training, and so I lectured and toured for many years. My first tour by myself, I was 17. I turned 18 on the road. I know, I graduated early from high school, so I could go right into what I felt like was my life's work, and that is about spiritual practice and having a spiritual understanding so that we can actually live a fuller life. So then I asked Spirit for a path that was very honoring of the feminine, honoring of the of Mother Earth. And it wasn't that the Inner Peace Movement was dishonoring at all. It just didn't deal with those kinds of issues. And the next thing I know, I was being led to the Native teachings. And so my first teachers were in books, and it totally resonated with me and set me on that path. So when I was incorporating some of those Native teachings into the classes that I was teaching in Houston, at the time, Houston, Texas, at the C.G. Jung Center there. I would be drumming for people to journey, and these mountains started calling me and saying, come live with us. We want you to come home. And it turned out they were the Blue Ridge Mountains of North Carolina. And so with my young son and my parents, we moved here in 1995. And shortly after that, about a year and a half after that, I met my teacher, Will Rocking Bear. So he was a Cherokee medicine man who had moved back to North Carolina, had a lodge up in the mountains. And so I was privileged to sit with him and train with him, be his apprentice for over 17 years.
Wow.
So,
and I was honored to meet him. So yeah, he was an amazing man.
Yes. And he is now in the spirit world. He dropped his robe. So in 2013. So a lot of the teachings that I'm going to share in just this very short amount of time have a basis in that training that I took in the Inner Peace movement, but also then with the teachings that Rocking Bear shared. And as you know, in Native spirituality, every tribe has their own way, and every village within a tribe would have their own way. And so I am not speaking for any Native American tribe or group. These are my words. These are how I've assimilated or ingested or digested the teachings that I learned from Rocking Bear.
Okay. Now, before you get into it, you said 3 things that I want you to explain it just a little bit, because this whole concept may be very new to some people that are listening.
Okay.
You mentioned spirit.
Mm-hmm.
You mentioned journeying.
Okay.
And you mentioned dropping his robe.
Okay.
So tell us the term spirit.
Okay. So spirit, great mystery, God, divine consciousness, whatever resonates with a person, it's just all that is.
Right.
And so within this indigenous tradition, and I want to just say too, every person comes from an indigenous tradition. So our lineage, our ancestors, all the way back to when we all sat around one fire, was indigenous. And so it would be really helpful for all of us to remember that we are all indigenous people, and that we can journey back and reclaim and remember a lot of our roots, no matter where our physical body came from on this planet. So
perfect segue is you mentioned drumming and journeying.
Yes. And so often in the Native traditions, that's how we experience, is by going within, and often with the aid of a drum. We go on a journey, which is an experience. It's like a dream or a vision. It's a way of reconnecting with Source and receiving messages and just experiencing ourselves as an energetic being. And I know some of your speakers have talked about all of that in greater depth. So when Rocking Bear was ready to cross over, we talked about him dropping his robe, and so that's in a Native way, that is saying he dropped his physical body. So, and that's one of the things I wanted to share today that's been so helpful to me, is the understanding that I am a spiritual being, an energetic being, a being of electromagnetic energy, energy that can't be created and it can't be destroyed. And I'm actually channeling that energy into a physical body so that I can walk and talk and learn and evolve as a spiritual being. And so just by that realization that I am a soul or spirit wearing a physical body, I'm not a body that may have a soul somewhere inside, don't know where it is, that kind of thing. It flips that so that we can actually look at the world with different eyes. And a lot of things come into focus when we do that. So that Rocking Bear talked about living in 2 worlds at one time. And that is the physical world. We are completely here, and the opportunity is to be a sacred human being while we are here, so that we can learn and grow and love and pass on the wisdom and the teachings. And we are a spiritual being that has no limitations, is not bound by the law of gravity or time, because those are only here on planet Earth, and or as part of that physical component of the universe. And so in living in 2 worlds at one time, we're not just a physical being on most days, and then maybe on one day of the week then we attend to our spiritual. It's actually bringing them together so that no matter what we're doing, we're operating from that reality that we are more than just this physical body.
Wow.
And it's
very empowering.
It's very empowering because many of your speakers talked about fear.
Mm-hmm.
And we know that fear of the unknown, fear of death is huge for us. But I want to let people know, for our ancestors, our long ago medicine ancestors, this was not the case. So because they lived in two worlds at one time, death was just another form of experience. So when you know that you absolutely cannot die, only the body dies, and you are back really into your natural home space, then you actually let death ride on your left shoulder.
Right.
And it accompanies you everywhere you go, because as a friend, as an advisor, as a guide, so that we don't have to, towards the end of our life, reconcile and have lots of regrets. And, we do that as we go along so that it's not such a big job at the end. And
it just interject
for their friends. And so when we look at death as a friend or as just a very natural evolution for ourselves, just like we were born into the physical world, we're going to be reborn back into the spiritual world or spirit world.
I was just going to say, one of the speakers did a podcast. D.S. Moss has a podcast,
Mm-hmm.
and it's called Adventures of Memento Mori, which is Latin for something like remembering that you're going to die helps you live.
Yes, exactly. And so many people are familiar with a phrase attributed to the Native Americans of today is a good day to die. And
I didn't know that came from Native American.
And if we're living our life correctly, then yes, that's true. Every day is a good day to die. And we want to take that a step further and say every day is a good day to live. Because unfortunately, some people are walking around just kind of sleepwalking, mm-hmm. and actually they're not totally alive. They're following all the rules and regulations and not questioning a lot or not developing that inner landscape. And that is what that frontier of death is all about, is that inner landscape. And so I often talk about spiritual fitness. Mm-hmm. And this is, again, not waiting to the last moment, like, oh, now I've been diagnosed. Mm-hmm. And these are my final days. Oh, now I'm going to get ready for the journey.
Yeah.
That's one way to do it, but that puts a lot of pressure on ourselves and our loved ones. And so what if we've been preparing for that journey in more concrete ways, physically, but also energetically, spiritually, so that we have that fitness. I just wanted to share one experience that I had, because within the work I do, the way that we stay spiritually fit or work on our spiritual fitness is through ceremony.
Okay.
Because ceremony is designed for us it reflects back to us who we truly are.
So explain what that means, ceremony.
Well, that a ceremony is it usually involves a group of people. It could be a fire ceremony where we are giving away, letting go of the past and offerings to the fire of what we're letting go, and then replacing how we want to go forward. There's a vision quest ceremony where people go up on the mountain for 4 days and 4 nights crying for a vision. So to get insight into what their purpose is and how to go forward in their life. And I wanted to share, I've been involved in dozens of Vision Quest ceremonies. Twice I have gone and sat on the mountain. And the first time, and this is where the way that my teacher did it, we would go, the quester would take all that they needed to be warm and dry, but no food and no water
Oh
for,
my.
for 4 days and 4 nights. So that's about as close as you can get to actually dying. Okay.
Right.
Yeah, but it's not that scary because the support camp is where they keep a fire lit the whole time. And all the people in the support camp eat food for you and drink water for you so that they are taking care of your physical needs so that you can actually be more in the spirit world than you've ever been before while still retaining a physical body. So it's an amazing experience.
So does
And
that mean you really aren't hungry or thirsty
well,
during those 4 days?
most times not, but if you do get thirsty, you just send the message, I'm getting really thirsty, I need some water, and someone in the one of the elders or other people keeping tabs energetically on you will tell everybody, okay, questers are thirsty, drink some water. The same with the food. They're eating very intentionally, drinking very intentionally for each of the questers that's up on the mountain.
Wow.
So, and that's how connected we all are. And so if you have a loved one in the hospital and they're not able to eat any longer, you don't want to stuff yourself intentionally for them because they don't need that. But you could take a bite of something super nutritious and say, this is for my grandmother. I'm eating this for her. And that will make a difference for her.
During her transition.
Yes, yes. Or water. During the hurricane, what was that, Alicia? Oh, no, I'm not thinking
Which one?
of the name. It was a while ago in New Orleans when it really...
Katrina?
Yes, Katrina, thank you. Alicia was in Houston. But Katrina and I was like, okay, what can I do for those people? And that day I was so thirsty and I was just drinking and drinking and drinking. Then later I found out about all the people who were in the stadium who didn't have water.
Right.
And so but we can do that to each other. We're that connected with one another that we can energetically assist. You know, yes, we can go, but not everybody can go and help physically, but we can always help energetically through intention.
That's amazing.
So I was up in my site, and I went. There's ceremony in the morning to send us off, and we have people guide us to our site. They had left. I had set up my little site. I had an altar set up, but I was still very connected to all the people in the support camp. I could feel them going about their duties and setting up all the different things that they needed to set up for the 4 days and 4 nights for them to support. And I was just very aware of their energy, just kind of a bustling and happy, but very focused. And then that first night that began to recede, but I could still feel when people were checking on me energetically. I could actually hear them, the energy of them coming to my site, checking on me, how am I doing, you know, and all of that. And I would talk with them. The second day was less so. I was a lot more just present within my own site. And then just in the morning when they would blow the conches, and at night when they blow, then I'd kind of tune in to how they were all doing. And by the third day, I was totally just in my reality of my work, my inner work. And nothing impinged on me at that point. And by the fourth day, I didn't want to leave.
Oh my gosh.
I was not ready to go back down the mountain.
Wow.
If I could have stayed 1, 2, 3 more days, I would have done it. Yes.
Wow.
Because, and so what my spirit guide shared with me afterwards is that that's very similar to what we experience after we have dropped our physical body. because it's all about resonance, the vibration or the frequency. And so we're very used to having this dense physical body.
Mm-hmm.
So as soon as we have released it and cut our energy from that, and there's still an awareness of all of that. And so if people still need to say something to their loved one and there's no pulse, that's okay. Just say it. They're going to hear you.
Right.
And this will last for a little while. And then as their body gets taken care of and they move further away, they become less involved in what's going on. And then finally, they're just totally present in their new reality. So my guide said, you just had a glimpse of what that's going to be like, but still being in a physical body.
Wow.
So I just wanted to
share. That's a beautiful picture, isn't it?
Yes, it is. But it totally made sense to me because I experienced it. And I think the reason I could experience that was because people were eating and drinking for me. I had dropped any concerns about my physical body.
Mm-hmm.
And yes, there are fears that come up before people sit on the mountain. But ceremony is a practice for how to live our life. That's the reason to do ceremony.
Right.
Is to practice. So on my second vision quest,
oh my goodness.
I had set up my little area, and I was saying all of my gratitudes and going to the 7 directions and all. And then when I was
whoa, what are the 7 directions? What does that mean? What does that mean?
In the native traditions, we use the 4 cardinal directions, obviously, east, north, west, and south. But also we add the above direction, Sky Nation, below direction, Mother Earth, and the within direction that connects us to our ancestors, 7 generations back, 7 generations forward.
Okay.
So anyway, when I was complete, all of a sudden I was overcome with grief that my parents had dropped their robes many years before, but one earlier, one later, but they weren't there in the physical any longer. And my son was growing older and we were doing really well. And so I just called out, Mom and Dad, if you can hear me, I need to really know that you're there and you can see how well we're doing. And I no more got that out of my mouth, Tina, than this hummingbird flew up and just stopped about 8 feet away from me and just hovered there looking at me. Oh. And I was like, thank you, thank you, thank you.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Oh. Wow.
So when you start, and this is up in the mountains, but when you start opening yourself to having some of these experiences and taking away that concrete barrier between this world and the next, these kinds of things can happen. And most everyone has had some kind of experience like that. Whether they're willing to talk about it or not is a different story. But there's so much more that we could experience with our loved ones if we stopped thinking that they are lost or gone, or that just because they are not in the physical, that they're not there.
Right.
And they can be there, and we want them to go with their spirit guides so that they can be clear and not hang about in a way that's not good for them, as we know can happen. So one of the ways that we keep preparing and working with our spiritual fitness is what we call soul healing. And this is where we keep helping souls to release from the earth plane who have gotten stuck here. So the attachment was too strong to a person or a place or a habit, and they weren't able to transition fully. And so with training, I've taught people how to do that. I received that training in the Inner Peace movement of how to help souls to go with their lights, to go with their guardian angels, to go with their spirit guides, and release all of the earthly attachments. And most times that happens, and every spiritual practice has ways to do that, of helping people, whether it's lighting candles and saying prayers at certain times, and all these things are there to assist souls. But sometimes our loved ones, that yearning, that grief is so strong that it can hold a loved one back from going. Wow. Yeah.
Wow.
If we have time, I'll share an experience.
Yes, please go ahead.
Okay. My husband was at he's East Indian, and his father had crossed over, and he was there with all the family and all the chants, and they had. I may not be telling this correctly, but I believe they had already done the cremation, and they were still doing chanting as part of the ceremony. And he was sitting there with his eyes closed, and all of a sudden, he heard his father's voice say, "I need your help." And so he kept his eyes closed, and he was like, "Okay, what can I do to help you?" And he said, "There's just too much holding on here. I'm not able to go all the way. And so I need you to take me out further than this." And so my husband says to his father, "Well, I don't know if I know how to do that." And his father just very typically said, "Don't give me that, just do it." "I'm telling you, I need this, do it."
I need you to help me, not just do it.
Just do this.
Wow.
So my husband had already had a few experiences at the Vision Quest in different places, where he had journeyed. And so he was like, okay. And he said it was very similar to how someone will put their arm around a person in the water to ferry them out of the water. You have them, and then you're swimming, but you've got them.
Right.
And he said it was very similar like that, but he called on one of his animal totems, Eagle. And so with Eagle's help, he grabbed his dad, and they took off. They flew up.
Wow.
And
so he did figure out how to do it.
Yes, he really did know. His dad knew that he really did know how to do it.
He could figure it out.
And then finally his dad said, enough. This is far enough. You need to go back now. And so he said, okay. And then he returned.
Wow. And what a gift. I mean, I would just think he must have felt so good that he was able to, that number one, his dad told him, "I'm struggling here. I need your help." And he was able to figure out a way to help him. I mean, just beautiful on all sides, right?
Yes. And that's why when our loved ones are in that place where they are sleeping a lot and dreaming a lot, they are mostly on the other side. Mm-hmm. Rocking Bear called that they are looking for the trailhead.
Right.
And so, and to not get in their way. So when a loved one says, "Oh, I'm seeing my mom," and or Uncle Joe is here or something, sometimes our tendency is, "Oh, no, Mom, no, he's not here. He's already crossed," or he's not here. But just agree with everything, because they're seeing and experiencing things that we may not be aware of.
Exactly.
And so don't get in their way. Just, "Oh, yes, good. Yes, what is he saying?" Or, just supporting them in that way.
Exactly.
And knowing that they are experiencing something beyond maybe what we can experience in that moment.
Because if you say Uncle Joe's not here, that's sort of holding them back, right?
Exactly.
It's getting in their way of what they need to do.
Yes, because they can see them and can feel and feeling those connections, and it's just a way of us helping to launch them and saying, yes, yes, let's unweave this connection here, because you're forging those other connections there.
Right, right, right. Well, my heart is breaking that we're going to need to wrap this up, but here's my heartfelt, just, I know everybody has learned so much in this tiny little interview, but we just scratched the surface of what this beautiful woman does. And I really want you to reach out to her. Her website is flowereaglelodge.com, correct?
No, just Flower Eagle.
Oh, flowereagle.com?
Yeah.
Okay,
yeah.
flowereagle.com.
Yeah.
I couldn't even begin to list all the different wonderful practices that this woman does and how much she's helped me and scores of other people. And like I said, we've just barely scratched the surface of her unique skills and abilities and gifts and all of that. So thank you so much for me personally for all that you have taught me. Thank you for doing this, because again, of the top 3 things that the TeleSummit viewers wanted to learn a little more about, one was the whole spiritual aspect. And I think this is kind of a new, different angle to it for a lot of people. And I'm going to be sharing with you a training program that I'm putting together. And one of those weeks, it's a 6-week program, we will focus on the whole spirituality thing. And White Star Woman has generously said that she would come back and share a little bit more when we do that training. So again, thank you so much. You're just the most beautiful thing ever. And I'm so excited for everybody, what you've just experienced. Now you know this lady that I've been talking about. So stay tuned. I will tell you more about the training program coming up very soon. And everybody have a great day.